But anyway, thank you folks for coming and joining us this evening on the Matrix discussion group from Tactical Sovereignty. Um, we're going to have return guests tonight from the General Post, from the government for the United States of America, not the one that you brought up thinking that was over all of us. The system that's been put over us has really just been a facade that nobody really comprehends, and that's part of the confusion I think that people have in life nowadays when they're dealing with things as far as the state of the government goes. Um, like I said last week, we used to put out the disclaimer that, this isn't legal advice, da da da, and I still stand on what I said last week that, we're not going to get any legal or lawful advice from an attorney, for one. They're not going to give us the whole scoop because they don't know the whole scoop. We're definitely not going to give it to a judge. I mean, how many times have we heard a judge say that I can't give you advice? We've got to get it out, research, delve into things, and help each other out and teach each other, because that's the only way people are going to learn. That's the only way that the people on this land are going to awaken to the truth of the matter of what's happening and where they're at. Like I said, the most important thing that everybody needs to focus on is finding out where they're from, where they really are, and who they are. Those three things right there will turn all the lights on for you. So anyway, without much further ado, I'm going to bring on our guest this evening. And, like I had said when we were on the call with them here several months ago, the only disclaimer I would have is that if anybody starts talking to you about sovereignty or freemen on the land or, patriot movement stuff or whatever, run screaming, because it's going to turn your life upside down. It's going to make you start looking at things as they really are, and it'll blow your mind. And it will change your life, the way you think. It'll change the relationships around you. And eventually for the better. But at first, it kind of makes everything go topsy-turvy on you. So we've got Keith on tonight from the government for the United States of America, from the General Post. And he's going to be sharing with us what they're doing. And to me, what I feel is really the only solution to things. I've watched all different types of organizations and different movements and things people are trying to do, and they all just seem to be missing some crucial points. And when I came across this website and started reading their info and everything, it was like, gosh, they've got all the corners nailed down, as far as dealing maybe with the driver's license or dealing with the postal address. It got everything, to me, it looks very well tight, very, very tight. And when people go there, this one complaint that I have heard from a lot of people is they're like, well, I'm seeing words like resident and driver, and they're using all these terms that it's legalese. Well, no, the definitions that have been afforded us have been legalese. What these gentlemen are doing is they are using what would be the common language to the common man. No hidden agenda. It's the bottom line. No hidden agenda. So if people go there and when you're reading their information and looking through the site there, don't get freaked out by saying some of those words, because those words mean what they're really supposed to mean, not what the hidden agenda wants you to think it means. So with that being said, Keith, how are you doing this evening?
Good. How are you? we had yeah.
Wonderful.
That's funny that you say that, because we get that sometimes too. Sometimes they'll tell us it, and we're a government, so we operate as a government. That's just how it is. But we're not here to use your estate or use it or to borrow credit off of it, to borrow credit from foreign creditors. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's what the current so-called government does. They're actually a corporation running things according to corporate policy, and that's what people don't realize.
They are literally the old Virginia company. They're just doing business as the United States of America and the United States right now. United States is actually the company that does business as is on Manhattan Island. That's a sovereign nation. Believe it or not, U.S. citizens are the only ones that don't know that. The rest of the world does. One of our guys was down in South America, and he was talking to a guy, and he says, "Did you know that Manhattan Island was a nation unto itself?" And he goes, "Yeah." He says, "I'm surprised you know that." He said, "That's supposed to be a huge secret."
And that's one of the points I wanted to touch on with you. I had like 3 or 4 things written down that I wanted to talk to you about. And one of the things that people need to realize is, there's 2 systems kind of running side by side. Well, one has been dormant, or at least very well hidden and unseen. And what this is kind of bringing that back to life again and bringing it back to use again. And very commonly in like the patriot movements, you hear people talk about expatriating and things like that. Well, what this is, in my mindset, is not expatriating, it's repatriating, because we've been pulled off from the original jurisdiction that we were supposed to be in. And we've been, in a way, maneuvered or tricked into following another jurisdiction. And that's the info that, our guest is going to be bringing with us tonight. And like I said, that was one of the things I wanted to touch on, was the difference between, to you, and I've heard you speak on it before, I just wanted, to let some of these callers hear it, is the difference between a citizen of the U.S. versus a U.S. citizen. If you could expound on that.
Okay, the U.S. citizen is, if I remember right, I think was created in 1955. It was done just after the treaty, or the Bar Treaty, was written. The Bar Treaty was written, I think it was 1947 or 48, and it was a treaty with the United Nations so that lawyers would be able to represent the United Nations. So essentially, every court you go into where there's the American Bar Association member, you're looking at an international court. Now, everybody would say, "Oh, those are admiralty courts." They're not admiralty courts. I don't know why people say that. They're not. I've been through that whole thing. Most of the things that people say, we've already been through. We've gone through those groups. We've gone through all that information, and that's not what they are. So they have issues with, they have a lot of issues and a lot of things that are going on around, out there but that basically confuses people. Essentially, what you just said was you were trafficked. That's called international trafficking. When you're trafficked from one venue, and a venue means a meets and bounds, to another, even if it's on paper, and even if you're in the same area, that's still technically trafficking of persons. That's why they only deal with persons. So what happened is they have 2 books, just to keep it as easy as possible to get a picture in your head. They took your name out of one book and put it in another, and that's as simple as that. And when they did that, everything changes, because internationally, and dealing with meets and bounds and seaward boundaries, people say, "I'm a sovereign man on the land." Run, get away from there, because you just what that statement literally means is you landlocked yourself, which is an illegal move. There's no such thing as a sovereign man. In international law, there are sovereigns. There are independent and sovereign states. The people that are elected to run the government, they are the sovereign. That's what the Law of Nations says. And all nations were built under the Law of Nations, because the United Nations Charter just became a part of the Law of Nations. It didn't take it over. Law of Nations is how a nation is built, and what the characteristics of the international person. For instance, if you say the word France, everybody knows the word France. France is an international person. The people that are elected into its government, those are the sovereign. All that power came from the people. So what happens is if someone from France, this is where the confusion part comes in, especially with the internet. If somebody is in France and they want to do business with somebody in Spain, they actually are supposed to go through each other's Secretary of State to make that happen. You can't just set up stuff like that they're doing today on the internet, where a citizen from Spain will contract with a citizen from France, or a business from France, and those two, the contract takes over. So basically, they both made their under the contract, they both made their company stateless. You have to be very careful today, especially with the internet, on how you operate. So that all came from just the simple statement, sovereign man on the land. Just that right there brings it all the way up to international law, and we'll bring it all the way up to explaining the differences between metes and boundaries and borders. There's a lot of noise there on two. Brian, is that you?
Yeah, and very well could be me. That touched on something that I wanted to have you touch on, which was the metes and bounds. And I think, I don't know if I heard it from you or where I was reading it at, but it was discussing a statute of limitations on the Constitution as well. And I just thought of that because as far as the metes and bounds, the Constitution didn't set up any metes and bounds. I mean, if we buy a piece of property and say there's rules for the property, well, listed in there is going to be, okay, this property runs down this boundary and then along another boundary, there's a body of water on this part of it, you know what I mean? And nothing like that was ever written in as far as the Constitution or any document that I've ever seen.
Right. They didn't. Back then, all of the metes and bounds were in the deeds of the people. So if you have the legal description, and by what they mean by legal, and I believe the lawyers have really trashed that word. Legal is not a bad word. Law is not a bad word, or lawful or legal is not. This legalese, this, that. Just because somebody uses it and trashes it and uses it for evil does not mean that it's bad. So when you're dealing with entities, in other words, when you're dealing with the name of a country or a name of a state, most people say, well, I'm a living man, and I'm not the dead man, or I'm not the dead state, and all this other stuff. Well, then they're just pretty much throwing the Bible out into the, just throwing it in the ocean. That's all they're doing, because legal entities have been created all the way through from Genesis all the way to what's the last book? Revelations. That it's all in there. That's what the Yisrael nation was. That's what Israel is. That's what all these countries are. So when we say the word legal, we're only talking about entities, and we're talking about a much wider picture than what most people are used to seeing. Much like they'll say, I don't believe in legal entities, but yet they put state of so-and-so on their paperwork. Well, if you didn't believe in it, why'd you put it on there? So it becomes hypocritical. That's what happens. And then, I'm a living being, well, great. Well, so are we. But really what we're talking about here is we're talking about classifications. Okay, so if they change the classification of an entity and or a book, then you've got a problem. They're trying to mask something. That's when something becomes evil, and that's when something becomes nefarious. And essentially, what happened is let's go back to the metes and bounds. What they did was a Virginia company could only claim one area, which would be the District of Columbia. That's all they could do, and they could only put it in a district. They didn't have state authority, and they still don't have it, even though they did it. They tried to change it by statute in 1864. It's still illegal, either way you look at it. So any state that includes the District of Columbia is an illegal state. If they recognize the District of Columbia as a state, it becomes a state within a state. That's called changing the venue, changing the metes and bounds. Today, they have U.S. states, and those U.S. states are called city-states. So like begets like. You can't get a chicken from two ducks. So when you have a 3-city-state empire, all they can do is recognize more city-states. So the city of Washington, the city of London, and Vatican started recognizing the cities over here as independent city-states, as it was done in Greece many years ago. But that does not talk about the country itself.
Wow, that sounds like a gunshot.
Okay. Yeah, they can pick up his lung on there. So if that explains just a little bit about the arguments that you have on one level actually define or are defined on a much larger scale internationally. Does that help? I think, I don't know if Brian's there or not.
Well, Keith, that brings me to something that, yeah, I'm right here. That brings me to something also that I keep hearing people talk about and everything, and I find it really frustrating. And, you know, there was a video of whatever, you know, he lived out in the woods, or what, I don't know if it was Alaska or where he was at, but he was in court and he was yelling at the judge, you know, I'm a living, breathing man, my blood flows, da da da. And then I hear people talking about, you know, rebutting this presumption of being a corporation and this and that. And, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but in what I've studied and learned, and you kind of mentioned it there in changing, not necessarily, you didn't use the word venue, but kind of changing the capacity you're operating in. And that's where the fraud would lay at. And that's actually what I've really come to believe, is that what they are really doing, for instance, say if you're in a court setting, is that they are placing you in a position of acting as agent for an organization that they created. And it's about capacity to me. And they're looking at you as operating in a different capacity than what you really think or even are aware of.
They're assuming,
if that makes any sense.
They're assuming membership, but they don't want to admit that because they don't want to tell the taxpayers and the voters that they turned their public court into a private membership association working under a charter of the judges that is based in Roma, Italy. That's a mouthful right there. It's a huge mouthful. They don't want you to realize that they're in a private membership association. And that's
something I want to ask you.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say that's something I want to ask you about as well, because, you know, we've looked at the whole 3-city-state thing and look at the bar being positioned in City of London. Is the bar still in the City of London, or is it in Roma, Italy as well, where the judges organization's at?
They are still in London, England. Yeah, we looked them up the other day, and they still reside there under the international bar. So the American bar is subjected to the international bar, and really what it is just a bunch of kings that got together, especially from the Netherlands. The Netherlands is the highest king, by the way. He's the one that set up a lot of these monarchs. He even set up Hawaii's monarch, believe it or not. They still fly his flag, his company flag. But all they do is they're just doing business here. That's it. There's nothing more to it. They're just doing business. Whenever somebody tries to fight that business, then they start messing with them. Hey, you're doing this, you're doing that. And really what it comes down to is you really have to do your own thing. That's what we figured out. We're just doing our own thing. We went back to our own country and we started setting up our own commerce and our own money and our own everything. That's what it takes. So instead of arguing with them, just do your own thing. If you want to call yourself a judge or a justice, fine. That's great. No problem. Put together a charter. Put together rules. Get voters in there, people that want to vote you to be their justice, and to preside to in a neutral capacity to resolve arguments and problems. We got no problem with that. But don't go over there and start saying, here, you guys are a private company, and since you suck, it's okay for us to trespass on your business. That's not true at all. So if you want to call yourself something, that's great. Call yourself a justice or whatever. If you want to use the state constitution, prove that the individuals that are claiming to use it are actually using it. If they're not using it, then you have the authority to say, okay, this thing's been abandoned. Let's put this in the newspaper. We're going to claim it and wait 90 days. And if nobody objects, you're good to go. Now you got yourself a state constitution. What we did is they had no metes and bounds in any of the state constitutions. So we claimed the metes and bounds of all of the states and put them in a trust. We kept it there for safekeeping until we have people that are waking up, which is happening now. And what we do, and you realize they were trafficked. And then when that one video you were talking about on the T-ROH show, you were saying that the map said 1,000 words, and it actually did, absolutely did, and want to come back to the original states of the Union. The only way to do that is to come through what was originally designated as the national government, that the states back then had designated as the national government, and they, all of the people coming from overseas would go through the United States of America to get to one of the states. So all we're doing is exactly what's supposed to be done. If you go to Belize, you have to address the national government, become a resident there. By the way, it costs $15,000 if you want to be a resident there. That $15,000 is a bond. And you have residency for 5 years. If you and that contracts you with the Belize legislature. So they're saying, if you can follow our laws for 5 years, we'll offer citizenship to you. And that bond, if you violate the law over there, then you lose the bond and you lose your residency and you have to go. That's how they operate. Now, 5 years, you can become a citizen. You have to put up another $15,000 bond, and you have citizenship for life. And you're contracted with that legislature. Now here, it's a lot different because you have 50 different states within one union. And you have a foreign Virginia company that is consistently, has a perpetual military occupation in the states. That's where the problem is. So under a military occupation, you can't necessarily have a vetted citizenship. That same military government cannot, military rule, I guess, lack of a better term than government, military occupier cannot take away your original national identity. Does that make sense? It's illegal for them to do that.
Absolutely.
Yes, highly illegal for them to do that. So now what I mean by a perpetual military occupation is that you do not have a president of the United States of America. There has never been a president of the United States of America under the 1789 Constitution. Everybody here would acknowledge and accept that even with Obama, remember he had to take 2 different oaths. He screwed up and everything. They had to do his oath again as president of the United States. That was on his 2nd term because they didn't believe that he was actually, he would actually take it. Nobody believed it. There was a big conspiracy thing going on there. But once he did take it, again, everybody believed, okay, he's the president of the United States. Now, where is the oath of office for the president of the United States of America? There isn't one. It doesn't exist. They, in the United States, meaning Manhattan Island and the District of Columbia, they establish a president of the United States, but they do not establish the president of the United States of America. The only thing that's left is the commander-in-chief. And there's a 6-star title called General of the Armies. Now, I'm not talking about General of the Army. I'm saying that General of the Army is the General of the Army. He's a 5-star general. He's a General of the Army. You have General of the Armies, which is ARMIES. And that is what everybody knows as the Commander-in-Chief. And the people are recognized under the Second Amendment, or the Second Amendment of that charter, of the Virginia Company Charter, which is the militia. So essentially, you were all recognized by that charter as being militia. The only way to be recognized as a citizen of the United States is to take an oath and affirmation to one of its municipalities as a citizen of the municipality, which is one of the city-states. Then what happens is then you're eligible to become a citizen of the state and of the United States. It just shows an intent. Then what happens is you are able to get a dividend check every year based on the company profits. And we have absolutely verified from office holders, guys like that were county commissioners and things like that. They do get dividend checks every year because they are considered citizens. Now, if you don't take any oath or affirmation or anything of that nature, civilian government always overrides military. So you're considered a militia.
Good.
And when you start fighting them, that is a rebellion by militia. Now, you have to understand how I'm saying this, because it's not how or what you think you are. It's how that document recognizes you. For instance, Articles of Confederation amended August 5th, 2015 recognizes 3 statuses. A resident, it recognizes an American national, and it recognizes an American national who is also a general postmaster. Those are the only 3 statuses it recognizes. It recognizes. Now, if you want to come out and say, I'm a sovereign man on the land, and it's not sitting in any charter, then there is no such thing, and it becomes a fraud. Because no charter recognizes sovereign man on the land. It doesn't. It's not written in there. If it's not written in there, you have no standing. You have no legal right to enforce. So
as it was said before.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, as it was said before too. If you have no flag to stand under, other than theirs, then you stand under their law. Period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They'll presume and assume if you don't have another flag. If you want to use the peace flag, that's a surrender flag to me.
That's assuming that you were at war, and you weren't. So if you were never at war, there's no reason to surrender. So there's our general post office recognizes different offices. Our government recognizes different offices. Now, if say Tom, for instance, he's Secretary of State. Now, if we put Secretary of State's office in there, there is no such office. It only recognizes the office of the Secretary of State, and we do not change that. Anybody that changes something and says, "Oh, I'm going to the Secretary of State's office," where's that? There's no address for it. It is not recognized in the Articles of Confederation. It is not recognized anywhere, and you just made up your own office, and now you went rogue. That's what going rogue is. So when somebody says, I'm a judge, okay, great, wonderful, I'm glad you're a judge. Now, what we need to know is we need to see your charter, because there's different types of judges. So if we can take a look at your charter to see what charter that charter recognizes, meaning its constitution, bylaws, things like that, then we know where you are. In other words, we know how to approach you. We know who to talk to. Do you have a clerk or do you have a scribe? Okay, two different things. Completely different offices. We just need to know if your charter recognizes that. If it's written in your charter. Now, was your charter written? And did people come in and as a compact, under a compact agreement? So you guys made a compact agreement, which we all had here. And then you write your charter, which is your constitution. And then you don't start changing offices around and making stuff up outside your charter. People will begin to take you seriously if it's properly published. It doesn't matter whether you have a red fingerprint. It doesn't matter whether it's in blue. It just matters if you signed it. And it matters if there's an oath or affirmation there. Because the only type of government in the world that does not recognize a deity is a dictatorship. Those are illegal. That's why North Korea has an illegal government, because he does not, he even changed time, made himself a deity. That's what happened to him. And that's why everybody doesn't like him, because he's made himself a god over his people. And if he was a god, then why did his dad die? Gods don't die. So it doesn't make any sense. So if that helps, we're hoping that message gets across to people. And if they find that their charter in their county has been abandoned or has been changed without the authority of the people voting in the change, then you can call foul. And you can say, what we're going to do is, since it wasn't done that way, what we're going to do is we're going to reinstate, the people are, come together in compact agreement, you can reinstate your original charter. And once you do that, you'll have to sign it. And then you have to have elections within 6 months. You start your political party. Then you can have elections. And you can meet every week to organize all this. And you even have the right to set up your own ordinances, your own laws, all that stuff. There's such a charter called as a home rule charter that all the states, all the rogue states right now recognize. And they left that opening for people like yourselves that are voluntarily going back to your original country. And saying, look, the New World Order was a good idea. It was probably very idealistic. It wasn't really thought out in reality on how it would actually play out. And most of your ideas, guys, over here in this New World Order are kind of sick in a way. You guys are a little bit, twisted in the head. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our original country, and we're going to vet ourselves, okay? We're going to vet ourselves all the way back to the Declaration of Independence, and then before that, we're going to vet ourselves all the way back to Genesis, Genesis 1. Okay, and once we vet ourselves all the way back there, then we're going to say, okay, now we have our independence back. The people are independent. The government itself is a sovereign nation, and the people elected into the government are the sovereign. That's how it all works. So that's how this government is set up. See, there was one guy, I think he claimed to be a judge, or he was a justice. It was actually came to my personal email. He claimed to be a justice, and under the United States of America, which was a lowercase t, I think, and lowercase u. And yes, it was written that way in the Declaration of Independence. Now, we'll give you $10,000 if you can find that Constitution, because that Constitution was never written. I'm talking about 10,000 Continentals. Okay? Then you have these United States of America. and the Declaration of Independence. You have these United States of America in that Declaration of Independence, and then in the paragraph below, it says the United States of America. So the name of the country or the nation that these guys were creating changed in the same document. Now, who was stoned when they were writing that? Because we all know they were hemp farmers. They were
All
stoned.
of them?
They didn't pay attention to it. How could you make that big of a mistake in such such an important document? It should have read these United States at the top and then of America, and then these United States of America, if you're going to reference it again, in the same document. But they changed it right in the middle of the document. So what we had to do was, when we went back to it, we claimed it, signed it, put it there in the newspaper. Hey, we're claiming the Declaration of Independence. We're all going to sign this thing. Okay? And we're going to fix this legal problem that you have. Because England has maintained over and over it was an illegal problem. And they were right. It was. Ever since we fixed it, they stopped claiming it was illegal. Because what we said was, these United States of America as amended to the United States of America as amended to the United States of America, which is under the Articles of Confederation. We had to fix that. Then realized that the Treaty of Paris had nothing to do with the Articles of Confederation. That was under the Virginia Company, doing business as the 1789 Constitution. That didn't even exist for another 6 years, by the way. Then they tried to convince everybody that they had replaced the Articles of Confederation. But when you look at it, you can tell. I mean, anybody that with any form of reading skills can figure out that they didn't replace it at all. And you have diehard people today, man, diehards, that just love that Constitution, not realizing it's an illegal one, because it's perpetually invades or perpetually occupies other states militarily. And you can't do that. That's illegal. You have to give the states a way out. So even if you did have your Constitution in place and everybody was following it, and you got your rights and you've got all the things that you believe that you had, okay, it would still be illegal, because there is no president of the United States of America. Second, the people of the United States in the preamble were establishing and ordaining a constitution for the United States of America, of which they did not have the right to do. They didn't have power of attorney to do that. So there were a lot of problems in there, and all we were doing is going back and fixing them. And we did. And now we have residents growing every day. The map keeps getting bigger and bigger. We have different classifications, and because Canada needs help right now, so the Canadians need help. So we offered that through the original union. We offered residency to them, and they have been coming on. At least the ones that are awake. Now they're talking about ousting their president or their prime minister, because they realize the guy committed treason by joining a foreign nation, which was Islam. He joined Islam's foreign nations, foreign to Canada. So how can your prime minister join or say he's a Muslim? It's not under religion, guys. That's a foreign nation. Can't do that. So now they're talking about ousting.
So that's actually a military. That's actually a military move, isn't it? Islam.
Yeah, he is absolutely 100% guilty of treason against Canada. The people can legally, okay, right now, and I'm not saying to do this, and it's really none of our business on how they're doing it. We're just helping through the original union. They could literally execute him legally, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. Because, and not to say that they're going to, not to say that they have, but legally they could. And not one other country could get involved in it or stop it in any way, because he did commit treason.
You know, look, Keith, I'm sure we're going to have a plethora of questions here for you and stuff. And before we open it up for question and answer time. I'd like you to plug the website where people can go and look over the info that you're talking about if they want to read through stuff while you're speaking, or check it out later on. And then after Keith gives us the location of that site, we're going to open this up for Q&A. Just ask that people do your best not to step on each other, and just open up with, if I may, and let us know who you are and where you are located. So if you want to let us know where we can find that site at for the government for the United States of America, Keith.
Okay, it's government of the United States of America .international. It's all, don't put INT. We're not a part of the UN. So UN uses INT, we use international spelled out. So it's government of the United States of America .international, and that is where we have all of our links to everything. Now we have a couple of new websites that are going to be put up there that are still in the workings. We have continental.army, where people can join and get automatic American national status when they take the oath there. And we have the GPEC site still already open. That's already linked in, and you can open up a store there for free if you'd like to open up a store and start using the Continental Dollar. And we have another one, which is the Continental Public Bank. I still have some coding to do on that. When that's done, I'm going to be doing a big push on that. The Continental Public Bank. We got HTTPS on. We got a secure socket layer on it. And what we're trying to do is connect it to GPEC so you guys can go ahead and move money back and forth. So markets, a couple of markets have opened up on that site, and we're waiting for more. We need more people to come on there. You have the option of using USD, which is not recognized by its constitution, by the way. That money is not recognized. Silver certificates are recognized by that constitution, but not Federal Reserve notes. So you will be able to do that, but that has nothing to do with GPEX. Okay, that's going to be something you do on your own if you want to sell things there and using under USD. And that's specifically stated in the Articles of Organization. So just, fair warning, you can do that and then slowly move over to Continentals if you'd like to do it that way. That's what a lot of people are doing. We have a food supplier coming on here in just a little while that will sell food for Continental dollars. And we're looking for more and more industry to come in, manufacturers and things like that. And eventually, I would like to, me personally, would like to get with the oil companies and make a deal with them.
Your oxygen meter is on. Please wait.
That's a.
Please apply blood into the test strip.
Hold on a second, guys. Okay. We would like to make some deals with the oil industry to start accepting Continental dollars. Some of the electric companies have taken it. Toll companies have taken it. It's been sparse here and there. That sounds like somebody's trying to either got a hair dryer, hair dryer or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that was.
But anyways, so if you go there, Government of the United States of America .international, that has links to everything. You can go take a look at it, check it out. We also have, I just almost forgot, we have a help desk. Do you remember the URL on that, Tom? The help desk? Is it generalpostoffice.net?
Oh, God, you had to ask me. I'm not sure. It could be.
I believe it's generalpostoffice.net. Okay, and that's a help desk. And anybody can go on there and then submit a question. And then what we'll do is we'll answer it under whatever category it's there. We're trying to get that that website up and to where people can ask questions or go there for information. Let me take a look.
Yeah, I just posted that Friday. Into Tactical Sovereignty. That is a .net.
.net. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay.
I just
And
checked it too.
please keep in mind, folks, that your red, white, and blue flag is a company flag. This has been verified by ex-military and everything. Most of the ex-military guys, especially in special forces, are told it's a company. They know this. Then what we're doing is we went back to our original government and then revamped it to where it operates. We didn't do it to take over as a dictatorship and we're government and all that. That's not. There's not a whole lot of glory in this, right, Tom?
Yeah, and the pay really sucks too. The hours are long, frustrating, and well, I could go on and on and on about all that, but
Yeah, they're long, frustrating. We do get a lot of people that come up and they try to treat us as if we're a company. They're coming up. What benefits? Where's the Social Security and all that? Well, we have a social assistance number, and we have a Social Assistance Act, but we don't have really enough people to even run the act under the Office of the Secretary of State. So we're getting more and more people in, but less and less of them are trying to become general postmasters, and most of them are actually just going as an American national. And then the main issue they're trying to do is get the driver's license, because most of them are suspended because they fought the system. And yes, we're able to get cars and vehicles out of their registrar and registration system. What's that?
sorry, speaking of which, I just got that contact information for a guy who was doing that USA DOT, and he's asking questions about it. Remember that?
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be getting a hold of him in the next couple of days, but even that fell down the drain, and the reason why is because it was a trespass. I don't know what happened to the guy in general, but I'm sure he got nabbed for something.
Yeah, he went into.
Oh, that was Anthony Troy. Yeah, that was Anthony Troy Williams, and I believe he's in jail in California right now for practicing law without a license.
Okay, so it was.
I think Rob Ryder was another one that used the U.S. DOT.
Right, and the U.S. DOT, guys, that's a company brand. You can't just make one up and say, well, we're de jure and you're de facto. That doesn't work that way. That's not how that works. Go watch the one commercial where the woman is putting pictures on her wall, and the other woman says, "This is not how any of this works. It just doesn't work this way." Okay, so you can't go and say we're the U.S. DOT. That's their company brand, and like I said, we don't mind that they do business here. The original government, who has first in time, first in right, does not mind that the company is here. What we do mind is that if we run into an issue where somebody has brought in a lot of baggage, meaning they've got a bunch of court cases and crap going on because they've been fighting, and number one, that particular individual tries to use this government as a weapon to fight his war, okay, which we don't get along with them. This doesn't happen. And second, if we have a local police officer that does not understand what he's doing, trespass all over us and try to traffic us back. Okay, those are the two issues that we have with them if they try it. They normally don't, but sometimes it happens depending on the situation. But in the end, eventually they let them go, and that's it. That's the end of it. It takes them a while to to admit that they were wrong, but but it can be done. But we do it legally. We don't go and place liens on them and here, you pissed me off and you didn't do what I told you to do, so this is what I'm going to do to you in retaliation. It doesn't work that way. Okay, so
I think the bottom line.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the bottom line is that what's happened here with what people think is the United States is that, we've been infiltrated essentially from within by the Bar Association, and they're here doing business as the United States. And, we need to look at them in that same manner, is that they're here doing business just like, Walmart down the street might be doing business, or the Sunoco station across the street might be doing business. And we have a choice of who we choose to contract with and do business with. And what you've done is set things up the way they were originally intended and the way it's supposed to be set up. And so people are left with a choice. Do you want to follow this other de facto system that's just here doing business on the land, or do you want to contract with this system for the General Post for the United States of America?
Right. Yeah. See, like our driver's licenses are easily recognized. We can rent trucks, and we can rent cars, and we can do all that stuff. All our credentials are recognized. Now, the reason is because this government recognizes the intangible property right of the individual. So when we set up our Department of Transportation, what we did was, here, I'll wait for them to go ahead. Did they? Can you mute them out? Okay.
But I can go to mute, and I just want to make sure it doesn't mute you. I don't think it will. I think you're on a different line.
Okay. Okay. So what we've got is that we recognize intangible property rights. So here's your traffic issue that most people are having a hard time articulating. They understand it, they just don't know how to say it. So let's get down to the brass tacks, as they always say. You have a right to travel. Every state recognizes that. It's called a matter of right. It's use of the public highways as a matter of right. You can find this in every state. They all recognize that intangible property right. That's called an intangible property right. I'll give you, for instance, on that. Say you're coming out of the store, and what do you do? If it's a large parking lot, what are you looking for? You're looking for your car. Now, why would you look for your car and not just anybody else's car? Why can't you just get in somebody else's car and take it? It's because you're infringing upon the intangible property right of somebody else to a particular vehicle. That's the very definition of ownership. So,
yeah. Going back on our identification too, when I went down to remove I removed 3 from their system already to ship it out of country. They recognize our driver's license and ID card down there. That's at the DMV. Now, once you get your vehicle shipped out of country, then it's no longer in their jurisdiction. Therefore, they can't touch it when it's on the road, providing you've got your liability covered to where their property won't be damaged and not paid for when you screw up out there.
Right, and this is how we do it. Now, American nationals can travel, okay, with American national ID cards. Not an issue. The problem they're going to have is putting private plates on it, and you're going to have local police who are basically UN agencies, is all they are. They're going to be saying, hey, you can't go around doing this, okay? There's no structure here. We don't have anybody we can complain to if you have a problem. If you hit one of our people, if you hit one of our vehicles, anything like that, then they're going to have a complaint. So what we do is, even though it's voluntary, basically everybody that said they would never get a driver's license again that were American nationals clamored after this deal because it was such a good deal. And the reason is because, number one, it's voluntary. Number two, it's contractual. Number three, you're covered by a $750,000 bond. Now, our treasurer declared a human right to the value of $750,000 legal tender. We don't care which legal tender it is. It's legal tender. Okay, we have Continental Dollars. We have legal tender for all debts, public and private. So since that is a human right, intangible property and right to own property is also a human right. So therefore, the contract goes like this: you come in, you become you do your resident declaration. Resident declarations are absolute. Nobody can argue those. It's a political decision. It's even absolute in the Virginia Company and any of its agencies, okay, and the United Nations. It's the way it works. Number two, you want to get a driver's license. Great, no problem. First of all, do you recognize that you do have the authority to take an American national ID card and operate? You can travel on that. You know that? Yes. Okay. So we all know that what you're doing is voluntary. We have to establish this. So you're not being forced to do this. Okay. Second, you go over and take a driver's test. Get your driver's test done. Then you have to go to our registrar and you have to make an appointment with her to sign your contract. It's a 30-page contract. It says you're going to follow the rules of the road. You're going to follow the speed limits. You're going to stop at a stop sign. All your lights are going to be in order. You're not going to be out there in bald tires, and you're going to act accordingly, according to the contract. Once that's signed, now you have your bond, okay? Because at the time of the signing of the contract, what you're going to do is you're going to transfer your intangible property right to the use of the public highways to the Department of Transportation. Then what they're going to do is they're going to license that back to you under a 30-page contract. 32, I think, 30-page contract. The contract's right there. You can read it all you want. It just makes sense. It's like anybody else's contract. Then what the Department of Transportation is going to do is they're going to give it to Treasury, and Treasury is going to declare the value of your intangible property to $750,000. Then you're going to go back and you're going to sign a bond, a surety bond. Okay, now you can do that under a company. You can do that under a private membership association. You can also do it under your person. You don't do it directly or individually. You can do it under a person because why? Because that's what the Articles of Confederation recognizes in dealing with contracts. After that, you're able to go and register your vehicle. You have to register your vehicle first. Then you can go over to the DMV, turn in your title. You get a new title, and you get a tag for the car. It's that simple, but it's done right because your intangible property is recognized. Think of it this way, guys. You cannot, in any way, shape, or form, issue a license unless property has been transferred. That's an absolute in law. Something has to be transferred to somebody else so they can license it back to you. I'll say that again. Property has to be transferred to somebody else to license it back to you. If intangible property is not recognized in a contract, there is no license. It doesn't exist. So you can't come back and say, I have a right to travel. What you can say is, there is no license because my right to travel has not been transferred to the DMV for them to license it back to me. If you have a form to fill out that I can transfer that property over and you can license it back to me, I want to know what I'm going to get for that property. A rental fee, leasing fee, what are you going to give to me? If you're treated fairly, I was a part of putting the whole DOT together, and I love the idea. I got a driver's license myself. I didn't mind that our DOT has my intangible property right to the use of the public highway. I don't care. I get covered for 750 grand for anything I do. That's a benefit. That's a good thing. That's to my benefit. And the DOT is actually surety under the contract. They're the ones responsible that you follow the rules. So it's an awesome deal. Now, why the states can't do that, we have no idea. Why the lawyers can't figure that out, that they would have no issues with traffic if they just did that, because most of their drivers are all unlicensed or suspended. Their contract was, well, if you get a driver's license, what we're going to do is we're going to guarantee that you get a trial before we suspend it. That's their deal. That's like saying, we're going to guarantee that we're going to hurt you before we take your license. And then hurt you more. Now, if you're going to treat people like that, you're going to get people fighting back. If you're going to treat people like that, then you get what you deserve. But our DOT,
Well,
go ahead.
As I say, if I may, but I think that with everything that they do, that is the intention, is to keep these little battles going on and keep people busy with worrying about their driver's license and having to run to court and pay tickets and things like that. It helps them still feel that boot on their neck, if that makes sense.
It shows a certain period of superiority. Yeah, I would agree with that. However, you would probably get a whole lot of more cooperation if it was done correctly. I wouldn't have had any issue. I would have never brought it up. I would have said, well, hey man, they've got my intangible property. They valued it at $250,000. I'm covered for that, and good to go. I have no issues with it, and they wouldn't either. However, the private insurance companies would be losing a lot of money. The politicians that bought the stocks in the insurance companies would be losing a lot of money. So there is your fraud. There's your problem. The fact
exactly, that's where the rub lies, because we've got these lobbyists and everything that are out there just wanting to make a buck for themselves, and as are the people that are sitting on Capitol Hill being paid off by these lobbyists. They're all there just for personal gain. The whole intent has just been skewed.
Right, and the worst part is the politicians, and this has been verified, the politicians are in fact, every time a statute or something is passed, you know why Obamacare didn't pass. I mean, Obamacare didn't pass, or the, I'm sorry, the, what was it, the something American Care Act or some crap they came up with. The reason
Affordable Health Care Act.
Yeah, I think that was the new one that the Republicans were trying to do. That just fell through a couple of weeks ago. The reason why that was is because all the same guys are invested in all the stocks under the Affordable Care Act. So it takes them time to move their stocks from one to the other. Now, once it's moved over, they stand to make millions. And they weren't making enough. So what happened was they tabled it until they could get all their stocks moved over under the different act. It sucks, doesn't it? And here was the funny part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, here was the funny part. This is what they did. And nobody said a word. This blew my mind. And we were just talking about this on our guys on the T-ROH Show. We're going to talk about this. Obamacare went to the Supreme Court so it can be declared constitutional before it went into action. What?
There was no complaint.
There was no complaint. Nobody had challenged it yet. But yet they took it to the Supreme Court before it could be challenged, and then got a declaration from them that it was constitutional to do. And I don't know what they're talking about, because to force somebody to buy something, that's slavery. You can't do that. And not one individual challenged it as far as Obamacare and the forcing of you to buy it, a particular product, by the way, under executive order, they never challenged that slavery, that was actually slavery. Nobody said a word. So this guy takes it to the Supreme Court first, no complaint filed, no nothing, nobody challenged anything. They gave it their seal of approval, and then it went into effect. And then the programmers were rebelling, and that's why the websites weren't working. So the rope programmers, when they released it, they were screwing up the coding on purpose to tell Obama, we ain't going for this. If you want us to do this, you're gonna or force us to do it, or we're gonna want more money.
Yeah, and Skeletor was the one that presented it.
Yeah.
We don't know what's in it, but we'll find out when it's signed.
It was hilarious.
Skeletor.
So so we couldn't understand why nobody did that. Nobody said anything. See, we've got a system where we have called the Rain to Heavens Healing Center, and then what we did was we attached a club. What is that called? What's the word for it, Tom? Not a club. Not a monopoly.
Association.
Yeah, it was an association. It'll come to me in a minute what the name of it is. But anyways, where people pay per month, and then when they go to the hospital, it's free. And the hospital bills the association, the co-op. Co-op is the word. They bill the co-op for the services, and all you have to pay is wholesale on the products that are used on you. That way, the hospital can renew its products. If they used a Band-Aid, if they use this drug, or if they use this or that on you, you have to pay wholesale price on that. That's the bill you get. But the services are paid through the co-op. So everybody pays, $150, $200 a month or whatever, and they're covered. They can go to the hospital. They don't have to worry about filling all these forms. They just have their membership card. There's not all these issues. If you're operated on, that doesn't cost anything. The whole thing, all the way through. Everything's covered by the co-op. Not a bad system, huh? If you go to rainoftheheavenshealingcenter.com, I think we got it there, or .international, I can't remember which. The whole thing is right there, but nobody's paying attention to it. And there's a co-op.
Wow, I didn't even realize you had that in place.
Yeah, it's all in place.
Wow. Well, I guess I definitely wasn't lying in the beginning of the call when I said I really feel you guys have nailed down all the corners to the issues.
Right. See, if you have the insurance, like for your intangible property for the use of the public highways, that also covers homes where you live, damages to the house. If you get sued and things like that, it covers that too. It's not a socialist system, because if it was, then it would be 70% taxes. We're doing all this without taxes. We've also solved the tax problem. Want to hear that one?
Absolutely.
Okay. This is in the Rain of the Heavens on rainoftheheavens.com. Just put in tax into the search and you can go find it for yourself. First of all, you have to recognize, and/or a government has to recognize, that the people are the ones that own the minerals. They all own their property, so therefore they own the minerals of the property. We're not going to entertain that somebody that's in possession of property, that somebody else owns the minerals to it. We're not going to entertain that idea, because that's ridiculous. That's serfdom, and that's fiefdom, and that is an illegal system to have in place. So we're going to say, okay, the guy that has a deed, if he has a deed to that property, he owns the minerals of that property. Now, someone wants to manufacture something. Now, he's going to be using, for his own personal benefit, him or her is going to be using for their own personal benefit the minerals that the people own. So it makes sense to charge the manufacturer taxes, to tax him on the minerals that he's using to make the products. So your manufacturers are the ones that pay your taxes and support the government. The government is not necessarily, no, let's reclassify that. It's not dividends. What's the term, John? There's a term there. It's a different classification. When you're paying on mineral rights.
I don't remember what that word is, Keith.
It'll come to me in a minute. Always does. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way I am too.
Yeah, I just can't remember that word. However, when those are basically what you're doing is you're not necessarily collecting taxes. What's the word for that?
It's paying for the products they use. It belongs to the people. That's all. It just in those, when they take the minerals out of the ground, they just pay for the minerals, and that is what you're calling taxes.
Right.
Is it a user fee?
No. Let me go. I think I can handle. I'm over on reignoftheheavens.com. It'll come to me. It's not a dividend. It's not a dividend. It's there it is. How to fund a government without direct. It's called the Land of Milk and Honey Treaty of 2016. We have the treaty in place. It's ready for, people can sign it if they sign on to it if they want. It says the Land of Milk and Honey Treaty has had long-term implications that the control of the minerals within the metes and bounds of each country rests with its people. The Land of Milk and Honey Treaty is a human right compliant in its entirety. So the large corporations just have to pay this, and then they're fine. They're using the minerals. It is convinced that compacts by and between the people in social compact is an indispensable condition for stability, peace, and development of these articles. Confident that true significance and solidarity and good neighborliness can only mean the consolidation of this content. Okay, and each contracting party shall repel any attempt by any third party to justify the invasion of the contract by and between the people and their government in violation of Article 21, Section 1 of the UDHR. Split titles to property shall be repelled, because what's happening is they're splitting your titles. Each contracting party shall express the will of the people through its elections, which forms its government and its sovereign public bank. The people contracted with their government through declaration, oath, or affirmation, or otherwise shall retain the right as expressed within Article 21, Section 1 of the UDHR. That's the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Royalties, that's the name. What the government is doing is collecting royalties from the manufacturers. The royalties go for paying for the government in whatever expenses there are, and whatever's left over go back to the people each year in March 21st. That's how our system operates.
Basically, the way the Federal Reserve was set up until they reclassified it too.
Right, till the communists took over. It says the producers shall enjoy certain immunity under the license governed by the doctrine of codification to reduce the impairment of production, to be determined by the contracting parties within their own spheres and governed by the UDHR, or as otherwise provided for the purpose of protecting the producer from certain injustices against producers committed by consumers in their representation. So if they pay the royalties, that gives the producers certain immunities from people walking into stores, slipping and falling and all that kind of crap, or product liability, because they're getting hammered with product liability. So that's where the private insurance industries came in and said, we'll cover your product liability, which means now you got to ramp up the charge or the cost of your product and pay a bunch of lawyers and pay a bunch of this, pay a bunch of that, which is a parasitical point of view. So if you get that third party the hell out, and that contract is between the people, the government, and the manufacturer, and you get rid of the third party, you're good to go. It's not an issue. This makes it very attractive for producers to become producers and therefore create jobs. That's how you get your jobs started. Then you have certain protections for consumers. and then you have ratification, entry, and force, and that's right on. Just put in tax under reignoftheheavens.com. Just put in the word tax at the top where it says Twitter and Facebook. Tax there, and scroll down. You'll be able to read through that the land of how to fund a government without direct taxation, and that's how you fund your government.
That's what export taxes are. They're just paying royalty on the material that they're either shipping in or shipping out.
Right.
Well, what this is, and it seems to be the problem that is underlying in everything, is there's always this third-party intervener that has stepped in, and that's where the majority of the expense is coming from. The
majority of the waste. I call it waste.
That's a better terminology. Better terminology, definitely.
Yeah, there's a lot of waste involved.
We've been on for just over an hour and 15 minutes, and you've definitely given a ton of info that I'm probably going to go back and re-listen to this call again as well. I wanted to open this up in the chat. There's a lot of people with questions and things.
Okay.
So I'm gonna unmute everybody so people can come on. Just let us know where you're calling from and who you claim to be, and we'll go from there. All right, guys. I'm unlocking now. So if somebody had a question, feel free. How are we doing?
Yeah. Hey, Brian. It's Steve from Illinois.
Hi, Dave.
You there?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I think it was Keith that's been talking. Now, I was listening. Now, here you go with a naysayer, I guess, here. But I just have a lot of questions about, he was talking about human rights and going to the international board. What I've got a concern with on that, or a question about, is we were supposed to have our unalienable rights. And we got groups like ACLU, we've got politicians and all this that seem to be able to come back and define people's rights that are unalienable, which has been going on for a long time. Now, if I'm mistaken, I'm understanding that human rights would be going to an international board. So that being said, we're taking an interpretation of somebody's rights when they feel like they're violated to an international board. Is that not just the same problem we've got going on right here with our system now? Because all men, now we're talking about men and women, and it's great to feel that we've got an honor system among us. But as being human, there's going to be bad apples being involved. There's going to be people with hurt feelings, and who is going to be defining either our unalienable rights, our civil rights, or human rights? I mean, we're appointing somebody to define for us. So that's kind of I guess it sounds like a naysayer question, but it's just a question of it seems like that we're just evolving from one government into another worldwide government, because the Affordable Health Care Act is a universal health care, and the United Nations is all supportive of the universal health care. So things are leading in one thing to another, and it ultimately comes down to a new world order. With that, I'll yield.
Okay. Now, that's what we first got. That's what the PAGs first got. The private attorney generals across America, when they first got here, they thought the UDHR was United Nations. And it's not. It has nothing to do really with the United Nations. What happened was Roosevelt's wife. I'll wait for all that. There's a lot of noise there. I don't know how people make so much noise.
Yeah, if people would mute out while they're not speaking, that would be helpful. I just muted the board again until the next question comes up.
Okay, we explained it to them also. The UDHR is actually on its own. Even though it's considered among countries customary international law, it really has nothing to do with the UN. The UN just adopted it to make it look good, to put on a pretty face. Because the UN is, in fact, a communist organization, and they deal in definitions. Okay, defining things, reclassifications, all that kind of stuff. We don't do that here. Most of our laws are created by court cases, and those court cases are created by experiences and affidavits of the people that went through them. That's how most of our stuff is done. When we looked at the UDHR, I thought the same thing when I first saw it. And I said, well, that's just a UN thing. I know they're communist pinkos over there. I didn't like them. And I don't like the way they do things. I've had dealings with them in the past with certain international private membership associations, or another word for fraternal orders and things like that, would approach us and try to get us to, I think one time they tried to take over our human rights defenders. They wanted to give us UN badges to become judicial officers within a professional court. They've tried almost everything they could possibly do to get us to stop what we're doing as far as a national government's concerned. This government's under the law of nations. Okay, the law of nations does in fact recognize people, men and women, and it does define what you're talking about. Those definitions are already in place. Now, whether a communist organization comes in and starts trying to redefine things, reclassify things, you have a legitimate concern. So do we. The office holders have a legitimate concern, because the office holders here, they're only in office for 2 years, and they can go a total of 4. After that, they are subject to whatever they're doing or whatever they did while they were in office. It does affect them also. Our Congress does not have immunity from its own laws. That's the difference. So the people that are in office, what happened is, say, the U.S. Congress made themselves immune from their own acts. Well, it doesn't affect us. We have our own insurance. Oh, really? Okay. Well, but you guys are under the Affordable Care Act. It doesn't work that way. If we had an Affordable Care Act, those various same people in Congress, our Congress, would be subject to it when they got out of office and while they're in office. There's your difference. So you're not giving somebody power of attorney to turn it against you. The UDHR and what is involved in that is highly understood among everyone, okay, in what they call the international community, and we have to deal with them as a national government, and we have to deal with that international community whether we like it or not. We have to be able to communicate with them back and forth.
That's correct. And under the law of nations also, the law of nations does not control what we do. It actually protects us from other nations when we do what we're doing.
Right. It shows where our rights are, where we have the right to do something, a legal right to do something. Now, now, when it comes to UDHR, that was pioneered by Eleanor Roosevelt, that knew what a piece of crap her husband was, by the way. Because when you read it and you understand what's going on today in the court system, the UDHR directly in its face combats communism and what you're talking about, what you just said. That was the cool part about it. And it took us about a month and a half to realize it by reading it. And then when we started reading it, then we had a committee, we were in committee with it. Because our government has just like a 24-hour committee. And we were talking about it and said, wait a minute, that combats what we're doing over here. That completely reverses what's happening to us and all of the people taking advantage of it, of their rights, because that's all it is. They're taking advantage of their legal rights and against others and persecuting them, commercial discrimination. They're ousting them. They're treating them like deplorables. Okay, they call them deplorables. There's all kinds of things that they're doing. So that's what we were worried about, and that's what many people that come here are worried about when we bring up the UDHR. So we have to explain it that way. Go back and read it And then you'll see, oh, the United Nations only adopted it. It didn't come from them. And they adopted it at a time.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, they adopted it at a time where they had just gotten over Hitler, you know, the whole thing there. And Eleanor knew what her husband was getting ready to do, because she knew that he had made a pledge. He pledged everyone out May 5th, 1933. That pledge is where you're having troubles. Because everything, and then that's what sparked off the Declaration of Interdependence in 1976. That's what sparked off the Sputnik National Education Act, the Emergency National Education Act, which allowed college students to get credit directly from the banks for student loans. That's when the debt started going through the roof, and that's when all that stuff started happening. Every bit of it. The whole communist system started really ramping up at that time. Right when Sputnik happened. They created this big emergency that, well, man, we're too stupid and the Russians are ahead of us and we got to get education going and blah, blah, blah. They really racked that up. So go back and read the UDHR. It has nothing to do with the United Nations. And as a matter of fact, the United Nations is subject to it. That's the whole thing. It goes both ways. Does that answer your question, or do I need to get more detail?
No, I think that should have answered his question. I'll unmute again if he has anything, or the next question can come up. Anybody else have anything, or did that answer your question, Colin?
I have a question.
All right.
Hello?
Who is this? Yes, who is this?
Michael. Yeah, Michael in Florida.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, I got on here kind of late, and I'm trying to figure out what it is exactly his goal is. And if in a nutshell, he could explain that question briefly.
My goal.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand
Yes,
the question. It's not my personal goal. It's the goal of many. I'm just here on the call explaining things and answering questions. It's not particularly my goal.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay,
I understand that.
In other words, what's the...
It's a national...
Yeah, you have to... The goal is to do what's right. You have to have a national government in order to have a nationality. If you don't have a nationality, you're stateless. We can't have that happen.
Yeah.
So that's, if you
But
want to call it a goal.
What is the unique? Well, yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I've been around in this movement for going on 31 years, and I've seen a lot of different schemes and ideas and goals and strategies, and I've seen a lot of good innocent people put in jail, and I'm just trying to figure out exactly what it is. You say you're trying to create a nation, a nationality. I guess I'm going to have to visit your website. That's the Government of the United States of America.
.international.
Or dot international, and the full word spelled out, correct?
Correct. And it's not what we're trying to do. We did it. It's already done. What we're doing now is actually just Bryan wanted us to come on and talk to him, talk to his listeners, because of the last time that we were on. And we move on. We've had 2 elections. We have over 15,000 connections on LinkedIn, either all over the world or even with Homeland Security and FBI. Who else we got, Tom? Ambassadors. We got a lot of
Secret Service, CIA, you name it.
Yeah, and those are people that they're not condoning. Okay, they're not saying yes or no. They're just connected to us on LinkedIn. They're not arguing with who or what we're doing. They go in and they read all of our paperwork and they make sure that we're vetted, and they go back and they see what's going on, and we pretty much blow their minds most of the time. But the ones who do know about us, huh?
I was going to ask you, what type of structure is the organization?
The government itself?
Yeah. Whatever it is you have formed, what is the legal structure?
We went back.
Is it a trust?
It's a government. It's the Articles, under the Articles of Confederation of 1781. It was revamped. It was. What happened was this. I'll just tell you this. The 1781 was laying dormant and abandoned for quite a long time, about 240 years or so. And there was a reason why it was still there. The reason why it was still there is because the Virginia Company took the original seal of 1780. And the original seal was the Treasury of North America. And they've been using it. They used it all the way up to 1968. That's how they got their national currency status. The Virginia Company has been using the national status of the original government to cover the fact that it is a Virginia Company. Been doing that for a long time. When they got rid of the seal, they went off a gold standard in 1971 through Nixon. They had to leave because they couldn't. When they changed the seal. What you're talking to is the original Articles of Confederation of 1781. Our political party, which was the Confederation Party at the time, is now called the North American National Party. We convened and fulfilled the Constitutional Convention that was not fulfilled back then. The reason was when the convention was ordered, the convention was supposed to amend the Articles of Confederation. It said nothing about a completely brand new constitution. They had to amend the articles. Those articles were never amended. So when we formed a political party and convened in a constitutional convention, all the states that particular document recognized were all abandoned. Nobody had been in those states for 200 and something years. So when we did that, we amended it. Actually, we've amended it almost 3 times. The last amendment was August 5th, 2015. All this was published. It was well known. UN knew about it. Federal knew about it. States know about it. Everything. All the representatives knew about it. Then we put in just a little while ago called the first in time, first in right. First in time, first in right doctrine is well known throughout the courts. It's dealing with property, deals with brands, it deals with patents, it deals with copyrights, it deals with everything. First in time, first in right. So if the Articles of Confederation were first in time, then it's first in right. If it was amended properly, like it was originally supposed to be done, then if it was originally done the way it was supposed to be done, we could not have done this. We couldn't have claimed it, signed it, and then changed it. But when they came out with a brand new or some other constitution and failed to amend the Articles of Confederation, they broke chain of title. When they broke chain of title, they weren't vetted all the way back to the Declaration of Independence, although they like to claim it. We call them jumpers. There's a couple of there's 2 different types of people. There's a vetter and there's a jumper. A jumper will go from the Declaration of Independence and jump right over to 1789. Completely ignore the Articles of Confederation, completely ignore the Continental Congress. They'll completely ignore everything and go right over to the 1789. That's a jumper. You haven't been properly vetted all the way back to the Declaration of Independence, so you can't say you don't have the standing that you say you have. They went from the General Post Office of 1775 over to a postal department in 1789. That's a jumper. You can't do that. Ebenezer Hazard never had a successor. Ebenezer Hazard was the last Postmaster General under the Articles of Confederation. That was written right in Benjamin Franklin's ledger. We have a copy of the ledger. It was saved by a fire, I think, in 1878. Somebody tried to destroy that ledger because there were certain people that wanted to change history, and they wanted to say that their 1789 was actually attached to the Declaration of Independence, and it wasn't. They even jumped in Marines. When the Marines were started by the Continental Congress, they had to completely change the Marines after 1789. Because why? Because they didn't have the authority to use the original Marines. We're talking about the U.S. Marines today. They're not vetted all the way back to the Declaration of Independence. The Navy isn't either. U.S. military is not vetted all the way back. They jumped. And when you have a jump like that, and when you have a break in your chain, it's illegal as hell. Can't do that. Because that chain was the beginning of a new nation, and it was also the beginning of a new inheritance for the people. And when they broke that chain, that that jumping caused problems from the point that they did it all the way till today. That's why it cannot be fixed. You cannot fix that situation. You also cannot fix the fact that you don't have a president of the United States of America, because there's no oath of office for that in the whole document. That's what you missed. You missed some of that when you came on later. So if you go over to Government of the United States of America .international, read the links, and then we'll have no problem answering any of your questions.
All right, yeah, I think that answered it very well. And to me, what I've seen from what you've done is essentially you've just kind of fixed those links in the chain and set things back up the way they're originally supposed to be set up. And if I recall correctly, you have also sent this not once or twice, but 3 different times to The Hague as well, and there has been no rebuttal on that, correct?
That would be correct. So the Netherlands had no issues with it as far as the United States was concerned, because we weren't interfering with what their business is. We weren't interfering with what they were doing. Now, for someone to come out, and many people to come out, by the way, and get your inheritance back to where it's properly vetted, and you can actually, claim your last will and testaments and stuff, that's not a bad deal. I wish somebody had done that for me. I'd say, hell yeah, I'll sign on. Cool. We're good.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Whatever you want to do.
Was there somebody else that had a question?
I have a question.
Yes, who's this?
This is Jerry from Vermont.
How are you doing, Jerry?
Good. How are you doing, Brian? I have a situation, really it's not the same as the topic that is being talked about today. Can I ask that?
Sure, who knows? It might tie in more than you think.
Yeah, so here's the situation. It's a credit card that was maxed and never paid. A law office or debt collector sued me in my small claims court in the name of Bank of America. I called Bank of America and I recorded the conversation telling me that they did not really sue me. They gave the debt to Truck America, and America hired this. They really didn't know. So I couldn't pay. I asked them to pay. They said, no, you can't pay. And I asked them to, if you sued me, and they said no. So I wrote a affidavit. Now, when I answered the question to the court, I sent this affidavit to the law office or to the debt collector. Then they didn't answer, of course. Then I decided to counterclaim. But I made a small mistake. On the counterclaim, I didn't really put the name of Bank of America in it. Put only the lawyer and the law office or the debt collector. And their answer to this was dismiss the counterclaim because it's not a counterclaim, because the name of Bank of America is not there. If you were in my decision, in my position, what would you do? You would have done? What you would do from now on?
Well, Keith, I don't think I've ever really heard you address situations like that. Do you have anything to say regarding a matter like that?
Now, to answer the previous question, I've been doing this for 27 years. John over here has been in it for how long, John? He'll come on in a minute. He'll grab his. I'll answer his question in a minute. John, folks, I think it's been 35 years since the 80s. We've seen people come and go, and we've seen a lot of people get hurt. Same as you. And we've ducked a lot of problems because of that, especially with these Continental Marshals coming out. That's a joke, by the way. We've seen people make up a lot of stuff, but if you're vetted right, you won't have those issues. Just letting you know. Now, the Bank of North America, the last official act of the Continental Marines was to escort a stash of silver crowns on loan from Louis XVI of France from Boston to Philadelphia to enable the opening of the Bank of North America. Did you know that France owns the Bank of North America?
Wow.
I told you that we said this before, the monarchs are doing business over here. So what you have to do is you have to figure out who you're dealing with. So you went in, you got a Bank of North America credit card, not realizing that you were actually involved in an international contract with a foreign king. France has its own king. Spain has its own king still today. Their government is just the king's government. So what I would do is I would go and write a letter to the King of France. That's what I would do.
You asked a question a minute ago, Keith, and I had stepped out for a minute.
Yeah, how long have you been doing this? Involved in this? I
started in '83.
Okay.
That's 1983 now, not 18.
So yeah, we've seen people come and go. Yes, we can tell you right up front when people are going to get in trouble and when they're not. We know it within 5 minutes. We look at whatever they're doing. It's like, oh, they're going to be in trouble here in just a little while. They'll be arrested soon. When we had no issues because the Continental Marshals tried to come to us to get them to validate them, and we said no, because they tried to get us to say that, well, we have an oath to the people. I said, where's your charter? And I said, I'll tell you one thing, U.S. Marshals are not going to like what you're doing. Trust me on that. And within, that was 5 months ago. I said, within 6 months, these guys are going to be sitting in jail. And they are, because they trespass.
Yep. That like in latter part of 212, we sent a document to The Hague over at the International Criminal Court. And they said it was out of their jurisdiction. About a year later, we resubmitted another one over there, and they said they had already answered that question. And their answer actually at that time says, we recognize your jurisdiction. I hope you recognize ours.
And that was the first reciprocity, that we won't step on you if you don't step on us, and that's how it operates.
That's correct.
But you know what?
Yeah,
we got so many
that falls.
With these debt collectors, I had that validation before and later, and the account that they're suing me is different from the real Bank of America account. It's a different account. So really, it's like so my counterclaim was really good, but the only mistake I didn't include Bank of America on the title.
Okay, well, like we said, the very first thing you do in any situation is vet it. Find out who you're dealing with. That's what we're telling you. That's the very first approach on anything. If you see something that's weird and something's changing and something's doing this and something just doesn't seem right, you've got to go back and do your research to find out, first of all, who is Bank of North America, who owns it. Then second, who got involved and who represents it? Where's their registered agent? Is this a private company or private membership association? Do you guys have a trustee? Do you have a president? Who are you guys? Are you registered with Delaware? Which means if you're registered with Delaware, that means you're registered with DOD, Department of Defense. So is that the reason, what are you guys doing? I don't understand what's happening here. So when you do your own research all the way back, the very first thing you do is vet out who is who. And then second, you vet out yourself. And what I mean by that is, do you guys know, or have you seen any last will and testament from any of your family? One last will and testament.
I know I haven't.
No one sees it. Where did it all go? No one has a last will and testament from their grandfather in 1750. Where did all that go?
Mm-hmm.
If you can't bet it, now you have to understand your positions, and then what we call a legal structure. What is your relationship with the Bank of North America? How are you looked at upon them? What does their charter recognize you as? Are you a consumer? If you're a consumer, where are the rules on consumers? And was it in the original contract when you signed that?
That's where you come back on it with the third-party debt collector up there, that you didn't contract with that man. You didn't borrow any money from him. The bank themselves or the credit card company. And if it's a credit card company, the credit card company actually borrowed the money from Bank of America. So therefore, you're not dealing with Bank of America either. If Bank of America wants your money, they have to go back to the credit card company. This comes under a third-party interference in a private contract.
Exactly, and that's why that's why you have to vet out your parties and all that. Now, okay, very first thing you don't do is, I'm going to lien you. Don't do that. Don't mess around with the judge. Don't mess around with the prosecutor. Don't mess around with anything. Find out what you're dealing with first. Then you'll know what right you can assert, what you can enforce. But if you got into a real messed up deal, a messed up contract, because a lot of them are done. I mean, most of these guys are freaking drunk when they're writing them, by the way, because they're horribly written, and they're normally not even complete. So take a look at that area first before you start freaking out, calling yourself man on the land. I'm a living being, and you suck. Okay, before that happens.
I was dealing with a credit card that belonged to somebody else here not long ago. And the third party kept coming back and trying to get a response from them. And I simply wrote it back up there, said you're a third party debt collector. No money was borrowed from you, and I'm not contracting with you now for under any circumstance. And sent it back, and about 3 months ago, hadn't heard a word from them since.
But that doesn't work for everybody.
That's correct. It doesn't. But
Yeah.
you got to run your chain of command to get everything linked back together. to know what you're talking about when you make a statement.
And the next time you want to fool around with a credit card, don't. Then you won't have that issue. Pay
Well,
for what you get. If you don't have the money for it, don't buy it.
that's correct. And
That's
the
how it
credit card is only a 30-day account. It's supposed to be paid in full at the end of every month. And that's where people abuse it by running an overdraw, and then they have to start paying interest on it. And once you start paying 25% interest on it, there's no way to ever get caught up, unless you just quit using it and get it paid out. Go ahead, Keith.
I was done. I said, that's my last statement. If you don't have the money for it, don't buy it.
That's correct.
Thank you for your
All right,
answer. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Do we have anybody else? We're getting close to that 2-hour mark.
Yeah, we are.
We'll take one more question if somebody had. I will say to everybody, if you go to their website, I posted it in the chat, and it's also posted in Tactical Sovereignty. There are many, many links there, and you should easily be able to find answers to any questions that may arise.
And you can go to the T-ROH Show.
If there's somebody
also.
else on.
Yeah, they can go
Yeah.
to YouTube.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they go to YouTube, and we have a channel there. It's Government of the United States of America, and you can listen to the T-ROH Show. We cover a lot of this in the T-ROH Show. The first one kind of sucked, the first show, but and we explained a lot about Reign of the Heavens and what it was, and there's a lot of information on that. If you're real interested, one individual was talking about Yahweh when he was on here, when he first came on here. He would be very interested in the Reign of the Heavens. Once he knows what that is, you'll never get him to stop talking about it, because he mentioned Yahweh, and when he did, I was like, he'll love the Reign of the Heavens. When he sees that, he's going to say, oh my God, because the Reign of the Heavens was the first republic ever in existence. The first republic form of government. It was right in the face of all the monarchs. But yeah, when he gets more involved in it, he'll see what that is. It'll be very interesting to watch his reaction.
Yeah, that was Justice Johnson, and I have discussed Reign of the Heavens with him before, and he's just got a lot on his plate right now. But I agree, and people also, like you said, look up the T-ROH Show. That's T_ROH on YouTube. If you can't find it, you can put that in the search bar in the Facebook group Tactical Sovereignty, and you'll find links for it there. And you'll find a playlist on my YouTube channel as well, where I put all the new shows.
Yeah, it's called Tactical Sovereignty. We'll go ahead and subscribe to your channel, or send me a link. I'll go ahead and get a subscription there. We'll subscribe to each other's.
It's just Bryan Parker Tactical Sovereignty, and it'll pop up for YouTube.
If I may, Bryan.
Yes, Trance.
It might be a good idea maybe to give up that number and that other code again, if they would. We have a few different people that are on the call that probably didn't hear it.
All right, yeah, for the Wednesday call at noon Central Time, that was the phone number for that was 408-636-0968, and the room or the PIN number you'd use for that would be 236-700-6257. I believe I'm correct.
Yeah, that's a recording of we do the recording for the T-ROH Show, just so everybody knows. We were talking about that earlier. That's what we do, the recording. And if you want to be on the recording, you're more than welcome. Well, if you have a question or whatever, you can unmute you. If you want to talk about something, we're good.
But if you miss that recording, you can go ahead and it'll be posted up to YouTube, and like and subscribe to that channel, and you'll get notifications of when they get up. And as well, at the same time, let me plug lawfulamerica.solutions is the website that was made for tactical sovereignty. We're in 13th week of DW's incarceration, and hopefully that's going to be resolved shortly from the sounds of it. Keeping our fingers crossed. Well, I think we're pretty much done with Q&A. I believe you really nailed down a lot of potential questions throughout the first hour, and you even divulged more info to me that I wasn't even aware of yet, which I totally appreciate. You guys have done a lot of hard work and really tried to cover the bases on the whole situation. Everything from healthcare and automobile usage, right down to what your real nationality is, and I appreciate that.
No problem. Yeah, we enjoyed it. Actually, I enjoyed this call. It was nice, nice call. Tom, you have anything to say?
Well, just so everybody knows, I'm usually available. If you need to get a hold of me, my number for the office is on the Government of the United States of America .international. If anybody wants to get a hold of me.
He's the elected Secretary of State, and believe it or not, when he calls, they listen. Believe it or not. We don't have a lot of issues.
Yep, I enjoy these calls too because it gives us a chance to go back and refresh our memory on a lot of what we've been doing too.
Yeah, you never really learn anything until you teach it anyway.
The thing of it is, once you get as much as we got behind us, you forget a lot of what you did in the beginning. You have to keep going back and refreshing yourself.
Yeah, we did that the other day.
Yep.
We did.
Yeah, we got a bunch of documents that keep popping up that we didn't remember.
Yeah, that's when we were putting together the Continental Army, which will be finalized tomorrow night through an act, and people will be able to. We've had a good reaction with that. A lot of people understand it, and especially when they saw that show that you saw, Bryan, with the two different surveys.
Right.
Yeah, on the T-ROH show.
Right. Yeah, that was an excellent show.
Yeah. Another thing too is if they join the Continental Army, that reinstates their Second Amendment as militiamen. It moves them out. It moves them out from under the company at the same time.
Yeah, and we do have folks. I mean, we're not just blowing smoke here. You can go around rainintoheavens.com. And you can see where courts do recognize the fact that we are non-citizen, non-resident aliens to the United States of America. That's your 1789 Constitution. They put it right in their.
Well, and I think joining.
Go ahead.
I think with joining, what you call it, the Continental Marshals or whatever, I think that would probably fall under 8 U.S.C. 1481.
Yeah. It does. It's Continental Army. It's not Continental Marshals. The original Continental Army,
I had that
started in 1775. See, that was abandoned. See, the Marines used to be called the Continental Marines, the original Marines. The original Navy was called the Continental Navy. And then they had the Continental Army. That was the original Army. And like I said, they changed the seal of the Marines in 1791. It was just nothing more than a foul anchor. That's all it was. And you can go to continental.army and sign up if you want. I mean, you can sign up to that website if you'd like. That's continental.army. And it's like a Facebook type community system that we have. We also have another community, generalpostoffice.org. We have GPEX, generalpostoffice.com, continentalpublicbank.com. Those Continental Public Bank, like I said, we're still, I should be done with that in a couple of days. But you can still open up an account if you want, start earning Continental dollars, and we will, as many points and everything that you earn while on that website, you can actually cash those in, and we will send the cash to your house. We've been using our own stamps for the last 2-3 years. It was funny when people saw that. They said, well, you guys, they thought it was a big deal that you've been using, we've been using our own stamps for a long time. We paid the IMF off. It was $6,000 that we had to pay the IMF to pay off that bill, because we used up $6,000 of stamps. We sent that over to them. The money itself is, in fact, legal, and they do recognize that. We've had 2 issues with 2 banks, and that's about all right now. We're not saying that the banks accept them in there because of the global New World Order system. We're not in that. We're not in that system. However, they do have to accept it to a certain extent.
Keith, just to reiterate on that too, we've had this crazy Native American that's been going around, and for some reason he's able to exchange them. He's done it in the supermarket called Ingles grocery store. I'm not sure. I've never seen it. I don't know if it's grocery store or what, but it's Ingles either way. It's down south. And then there's, let's see, he did it at a gas station, and he also did it at the toll booth between Michigan and Ohio. The guy came out and he looked at it and he says, yeah, I've seen those before. It's legal. And they took it.
Now, the Continental Army, it is legal for U.S. citizens to join a foreign army. You can go to generalpostoffice.international, spelled out. You say sign up for the Continental Army and read the document. Read what's there before you sign up. It has a link to what the company says about it, what the Virginia company says about that, and all the legalities and everything else. Then you can make your own decision on what you want to do. It's a volunteer army. It's in its infancy, so it's just about to get put into an act on Monday night, tomorrow night. That's when we have our National Assembly. We have to go over the act and everything and get everything finalized. We brought forward the Articles of War, and that's called today, the Articles of War would be what you would look at as UCMJ, what you would see UCMJ as. So there's absolutely nothing illegal about it, and we've checked it all out all the way back. And it does, in fact, if you can do it without relinquishing your United States citizen, or you can do it with the intent to relinquish your U.S. citizen. And there will be an oath that's involved. I think it's a 3-year, we're going to make it 3 years. But that doesn't mean that you're going to have to go to, that you're going to have to go to basic training and all that. We have a different setup. I was just talking to a guy from Switzerland 2 days ago, and I asked him how Switzerland has theirs set up. And what they did was they don't have a standing army. So what they do is every male over the age of 18 has to go into the army. They go through their basic training. And then what they do is you go home, you have the government issued rifle, you have your rounds. I was checking what John had read about it, and I did get that directly from somebody from Switzerland. By the way, he was a governor over there. And I'll show you what he wrote, John. And he says that they do have to do certification every year. So they're inducted into the military their whole lives. I think there's 8 million people in Switzerland, and every male is in the military.
The thing of it is that
wow, that is amazing.
There's one man that I talked to over there. His son's rifle was at his house. His rifle was at his house. His grandfather's rifle, his father's rifle was at there's 5 different generations still have their government issue weapons at home. And they is required they hold it a minimum of 1,000 rounds for each weapon they got. Now they're full autos and they're big stuff. They keep that in an armory, but they're scattered all over the country.
Right. Their philosophy is if they ever get invaded, they only have to shoot once from their porch, That's it.
Just pick up their rifle, step outside, fire one round, and go back to work. Somebody said, if there's over 8 million man army, he said, what are you going to do? He says, fire 2 shots.
That's how they think. And I think the guy I was talking to was a little anti-gun. I think he was, because he said there's violence in Switzerland. I said, well, there's always going to be violence in Switzerland, man. He said, there's violence everywhere. And he started laughing. But he did verify that, yeah, in fact, that's what happened. I think that's how we're going to set up the Continental Army. I want to talk to the National Assembly about it tomorrow, so that everybody has basically, if you want your national status, join the Army, and then we can do it for a 3-year thing. And then if you want to go on reserve, you can do that. And then that's it. You just certify every year and you're good to go. So I believe that's how
that sounds good. That sounds excellent. I think we had somebody with a question.
Yes, I had a question. Could you give out the information? I think you mentioned a website, and I guess it might have been your website. And then I think you mentioned a Monday night call for the Continental Army. Would you give that information out again?
The Continental Army is on Thursday night. That's when we're talking about that. The National Assembly to pass the act will be on Monday night. That's on Monday night's call. And that is...
and what's that number?
857. The room is 857-232-0155. And Brian, if you could say the number again, I'm going to write it down because I never remember.
010. Was that 0155, the last part?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. And then what was the website you mentioned? I think you mentioned I might be wrong. Did you say a Continental Bank? Is that what I heard? Or I may have...
Yeah, there is a continentalpublicbank.com. Like
so
I said,
it's called Continental Bank?
Public Bank.
Public Bank?
Yeah,
so Continental Public
Articles of
Bank
Confederation does not recognize private banks.
You need to get the other half of that in the phone number if you're coming on the call.
Yeah, 408. What was it, Brian? And then I was going to show one other thing why we brought up the Continental Army.
It's 408.
Yeah, that was...
Either one of you. Doesn't matter.
408. Okay.
Go ahead.
408-636-0968.
Nelson, correction. It's 638.
638.
Oh, it's 638.
638-0968.
Oh, okay. Let me go back then. So it's 638. What was the rest again?
0968. 0968.
Yep.
Okay. Get
now,
it. Okay. Just making sure. Thank you.
Yeah, the reason why we brought up the Continental Army, and by the way, everybody loved the idea. It was a great idea on what we were doing. When you on the sign-up page at generalpostoffice.international, there's a link there. There's a Virginia company's policies, and then there's what the U.S. military can remain in the classification of a peacekeeping force. See, they've got this crazy idea that they want to be police officers of the world. I don't know why they're trying to do that, but they keep pushing it over and over again. Now, what we did is on page 6 on one of the links, we can show you what happened back in, and this is off of published by the Office of the Armed Forces Information Education Department of Defense. Okay, and this is called the U.S. Fighting Man's Code. And it was passed they published this in 1955. And this was just after the Bar Treaty that we talked about an hour earlier. This will be the last thing. I'll go ahead and get off because I know you're running on 2 hours here. But on the page 6, and the link is there, you can open it up for yourself and read it. It says, and then too, the United States must constantly be aware of her high position of world leadership. That was self-appointed, by the way. And the code we propose must consider the standard of the Ten Commandments and of our Constitution, as well as our pledge to the United Nations. So the U.S. military is under a pledge to the United Nations.
That pledge was put in by Roosevelt in '33.
And on the T-ROH Show, we go into the Roosevelt Pledge and what happened back then. So if you listen to it, you can get the whole chain of events that happened from start to finish and their chain of title and how they operate and where they're coming from. It's all about communication. It's all about understanding. If you can communicate and you understand them, you can.
Do you recall which T-ROH?
It should say in the what the show's about. It should say in what I think it's around 12 or 13 that we're talking about the Roosevelt Pledge. It's the Roosevelt Pledge, and if we're talking about that, it goes into the 1933 Roosevelt Pledge on May 5th, and I think it's May 5th, and where he actually declared a holy war, Inquisition, I guess, and Eleanor knew this, and that's what brought about the UDHR, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So it all comes into play, and then you can go to governor at the United States of America 1781.com. That's governor the United States of America 1781.com, and he's got an exile list on there, and he's got all kinds of publications and everything else. That's our governor. That whole website's just full of stuff. And all we're doing is every time we work on something, every time we do it, we publish it. We show you what we're doing. We're not hiding anything. Everything that you see on the websites is everything we've done. Since we're in public office, we have to tell you everything that's going on. Then we have National Great Registry. A lot of stuff is published there. A lot of the states used to have great registries a long time ago. And those were the political parties that registered with the Great Registry. A lot of people don't know that. There was oaths and affirmations that they had. If you didn't have an oath of fidelity to the state, you were banished. That's published on reigningtheheavens.com. And the creatures of the state, because we went through the creatures of the state whole thing. There was an 8-part series that we put on the T-ROH Show,
which was interrupted a few times.
Yeah, it was interrupted 3 times actually. It was interrupted by different information that we had to put out. Don't get us started.
Well, you know, it wasn't very long after that.
Go ahead.
Oh. Yeah, I was going to say, no, it wasn't very long after that, like 12 years later. I think it was December 9th of 49 that Congress relinquished all offices to the UN.
Yes.
All public offices.
To be represented by lawyers of the UN under the Bar Treaty. They put the offices themselves under double representation. Does that make sense? They added a representation that was it's not supposed to be there. See, the people were supposed to vote.
Absolutely.
How everybody was supposed to see this? The people were supposed to vote for office holders. Then those office holders put the office itself under separate representation that wasn't voted in. It's non-voting. You see what I'm saying? So
You're right, and you know, and I think this kind of goes back and answers the original question from one of the first callers that we had when they were asking about what you were trying to do or what the intent was, and essentially because of those things occurring, all government offices have essentially been empty, and what you're simply doing is refilling them lawfully.
Right, making it function correctly.
That's correct. And if you go online and start looking up on ghost towns, you'll find that those ghost towns have got their people living there, but they don't have affirmation to the country. Therefore, they're not legal. they're resident aliens, and there's no population on the state because no one's taken their oath or affirmation. So to populate the states, you've got to come back and get a government going, which we've got, and take your oath and affirmation to the state that you're actually occupying.
You've got, this started back then when they had the 1790, and I think they revamped it in 1804, 1802. I'll just give you an example because most people are familiar with that. Their Naturalization Act, where people could be white male citizens, or white males could become citizens of the United States, which basically had nothing to do with states. It was just citizens of Manhattan Island. And what happened is they would, that would be called, I was born here. So that would be birthright citizenship is what they brought up, okay? Now, in order to be able to claim that, you have to have the oath and affirmation of your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. You have to have his oath and affirmation, and then that has to pass down to his son, and then the next son, and the next son, and the next son. If you don't have that, you can't claim that you're a citizen of the United States. That's why I said you have to vet yourself. You have to have proof that someone in the beginning took the oath that goes down to the next generation and next generation. If you don't have it, you are not who you say you are.
That's correct.
And you know that goes back to one of the things that I've said as well. When people are questioning, well, you know, why did they declare the people the enemy of the state? And to me, it's been because people are out there making a claim that they have no proof of. It's like somebody coming into your house and you're going, what are you doing here? And they say, well, I'm a family member. They've got no proof of a family member. You don't know them. They're essentially invading your home. They're an enemy.
That's right. Dead on, Brian. Dead on. That's exactly what's going on.
That's what happens when you don't have the oath or affirmation to your state.
Or to your country.
That's correct.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll open it up for one last question here before we sign out. So if anybody else had a question or anything like that, or a comment, feel free. And also, members of the group, we've got a member, Dave Smith. Sorry to put your name out there, buddy. But he's joined up. I've been neglectful in getting myself signed up with these guys, which I will be getting on shortly here. I did have a question though, also for you, Keith. Because I do most of my stuff off from my handheld device, and I was looking on there for signing up, and I noticed that one of the things it asks you to do is to call into a number like Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, something like that. And then also down in the questions, now I've pulled my actual geological address up to plug into there, but I asked for like a registration number, or I asked for a resident number. And I was looking around like, where do I get the resident number at?
Look to the right. There's a resident ID generator right there. You just click it.
Okay.
You just push the button and it makes the number for you.
Don't you have to get the number first before you fill out the form?
Well, it's part of the form, yeah. So you can. No, that's only on Tom's website. I don't know why Tom's website does that. Just
okay.
but yeah, David, I completely forgot. David did want to say something, if you don't mind, David.
Yeah, are you with us, Dave?
Yeah, he should have just jumped in and said, "Hey, Keith, I was supposed to talk on this thing."
If I may ask what a resident ID number is?
It's
resident ID generator number?
It's a file number, so we can keep track of the file. We number the files.
If I may ask what the replay of this show is, how do you replay this show? This radio program, this radio call? Is there a number to replay this?
You can find it on TalkShoe for Tactical Sovereignty, and I believe Keith is going to have a copy as well.
I'll probably put it on the T-ROH show. I'll throw it over there. I might do it for this week. I don't know if you don't mind, Brian.
No, absolutely. Go for it, bro.
That'll free us up. Do other stuff.
There you go.
But Brian Smith, are you there? David.
What's up, y'all?
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Let me ask another question about the resident status and getting a letter from your voter department saying that you are not a resident. Is that practical or no? To determine
Yeah, the North American
your status.
the North American National Party. We open that up to American nationals that are not general postmasters, but you have to have a state chapter. Now, the state chapter, either that or you can start your own political party. The resident declaration, that gets you mapped. We get the NAC code for it, and then you'll have to read the history of the NAC code and what that is. I have it on the website. It's on generalpostoffice.international, and it's under claiming or declaring residency within the original union. So essentially, what you're doing is you're leaving and going back to your original union. You're pretty much there all by yourself to a certain extent, except for this government here.
And what happens if you don't have any ancestors that go back to the founding fathers?
Well, then you might as well go back to your original country.
All right.
Which was
See you later.
Which was the United States of America, 1781, where you're declaring residency.
And why would you otherwise need the will and testament of your great grandfather?
No, that was under a completely different premise. We were talking about how you vet becoming a citizen of the United States and how that's actually vetted out. That was just an example. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about here. It was just.
Let me ask you something. There's a lot of people that probably don't even know what in the world that you're talking about, other than, it sounds good. But is there like a checklist of an index or something that one must do to get like some documents filled in to get your status straight? And is there it says a list of an index of a procedure to do one at a time to reliably get something effectively done with your status?
Right. With a resident declaration, the registrar will send you a checklist. And every part of the checklist is thoroughly explained as to why we're getting that information. And then
what does that have to do with? I'm sorry. Go ahead. I apologize. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was almost done, but go ahead.
What does that have to do with when you get the claims against you from the corporate state? How do you interact to correct? Do you have to give them a notice to correct their mistake, or what?
That goes through the Secretary of State or the governor. They handle that. You don't handle that.
Which governor?
Our governor here.
The governor of the well-known governor of your state, or the governor of the alternative state of the true de jure state?
No. Tom Gowdy or Stu Ronaldson. That's the governor, and Tom Gowdy is Secretary of State. It goes through this government. We handle that.
Government. I thought you said the governor.
Yeah, the office of the governor.
Or the governor.
Or the office of the Secretary of State. You have to get used to working with the government again. That's
of the state you're in. Are you talking about of the state you're in? The colorable de facto state?
We're talking about the government of the United States of America. You don't have your
true government, right? Not
right. You don't have your state set up yet. So once the states are set up, that's different. But you don't have your state set up right.
Mm-hmm.
So
how many states are set up? How many states are established now so far?
None.
How many?
None.
None. Okay.
They're all sitting in trust right now.
Is Mr. Trump going to help with this at all, you think?
Well, look what he just did to Syria. Does that tell you something?
I don't know. Everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah, that was a big one.
The biggest one.
If I may.
when he makes a mistake, he does it very well. David?
If I may, Brian?
Yes.
No, this is Dave in the Thumb. I was listening to a radio show today called the Susan Lindauer Report, and there was a guy from Syria on there, and he said that only 3 of those missiles actually hit the target. The rest went into the Mediterranean. They were 30-year-old missiles, and radio frequencies control them, and they jammed the systems, and none of them hit. And I'm wondering if that wasn't part of the plan. You know, they really didn't want to hit. He didn't really want to hit anything. And he wanted to get rid of those 60 missiles, you know, to clean out the inventory. But I don't know. It was pretty interesting. Truth Frequency Radio, Susan Lindauer. Pretty good show. It's on every weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Check it out. I yield.
Oh, that was a plug for the Lindauer show.
All right. Dave Smith, were you with us?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right. And yeah, I know you've joined up with these gentlemen and everything. Did you have anything you want to say?
Well, I didn't prepare speech, but I will say that the most important thing that I've found, and if you guys don't mind me going back a little bit, I was on the show where Keith and Tom and Stu and the guys were on the first time. I think it was late January, like that, on your call on Sunday.
Right.
And since then, I have been putting all my energy into that, into researching that government. In fact, that day, the first call, I spent all of that Sunday before the call just listening to the T-ROH shows, and Our Journey to Independence on YouTube is another video series, audio series that they put out. But I've found that everything they say, everything they publish is the truth. I mean, and they prove it. So I can't stress the importance of due diligence and knowing who you are. Those are the 2 most important things that I've found. You know, I spent a little bit over a year on the judges and marshals calls, you know, marshals calls on Tuesday, judges calls on Wednesdays and all that. And I'm not trying to demean anybody or tear anybody down, but I found no remedy with those people. It was even stated on a few of those calls that those people were just throwing whatever they could against the wall to see what would stick. Well, that's not good enough. You know, this nation is better than that, I think. So with that said, I have found what I was looking for with this government. The key to the success of this government, in my opinion, is what you put into it. So if you expect this government to do everything for you, it's not going to work. It's got to be based on what you choose to put into this government is what you're going to get out of it. And another fact is all the information is free. There's so much to go through, so much. And I spend just about every day at least researching one article or one topic with these guys, and they put everything out there. Everything is free, and it's just amazing what you'll find, you know. And the depth that they go into, you talk about root cause analysis, these guys got it. So that's all I had.
And we didn't pay him to say that.
Oh, thanks, Dave.
Because the pay is horrible around here, I'm telling you.
I think he's just trying to give somebody
No, and that's not blowing smoke up anybody's ass either. That's what I found to be the truth. Is, you know, I've been researching for about 2 years now, not as long as anybody on this call for any means, but in my 2 years, I've gone down a lot of rabbit holes that led me to dead ends, and some were in desperation. Okay, that doesn't work. You can't work in desperation effectively. You have to calm down. If you can, find a place to hide for a little bit if you're in trouble with the de facto, until you know, one, who you are, and two, find somebody that can help you. And that's what I found.
Gail says it well. She has a call on Tuesday nights, and it's just a question call. You can ask any questions you want on her call, and it's on this one here, 857-232-0155. It starts out, I think it's 8 Central, and she has a call, and you can come on there and ask any question you want, whatever you want to do. Basically, anything happens on that call. And she said it's best to run, not if you're running from something, that normally doesn't work here. If you're running to something, it does. It works, everything's great. But if you're running from something, it just doesn't work. Because once you stop running from something, once that problem is resolved, which normally they are, then you just go away. And you wait till the next problem comes up that you caused for yourself. So that's defining what David is saying. What you put into it is what you get out of it.
It all comes back to intent.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just trying to get out of
well,
a ticket,
and you know, and yeah, right, exactly. And what David said is exactly what my gut has told me about this government, and that's why you guys are on a second time. So I guess we have gone well over the 2-hour mark now. So I want to thank you guys for being here, and I'm sure you'll be back again. Maybe the next time around it could be more of just a strictly Q&A, but I think a big part of the problem is a cognitive dissonance, that people not completely comprehend the situation that they're in, and that the government that's running right now is not the government they think it is. The Clearfield Doctrine even spelled it out, that a corporation cannot be a government. Bottom line. And so I want to thank you guys for coming on. John, Tony, Tom, and Keith, appreciate having you guys.
Thank you, Brian.
And
appreciate it.
If I may, before you let them go.
Yes, France. What's up, brother?
What was that number that he just rattled off so fast for Tuesday's call?
Oh, actually, there's another part to that call, that number, because that's not actually a phone number. Okay. That's actually the room number.
Oh, okay. That's the PIN number?
Yeah. I'll start with the PIN number because it'll make it easier, I think. 857-232.
857-232.
0155. Now that's the PIN number. All right.
Okay.
It's not a phone number, so don't call the phone number.
Right.
The phone number is 646.
Do the 408 number, Tom. 408. We've been saying the 408 all night.
Really? Okay. 408-638-0968. Again.
So that's the same number he gave earlier. It's just a different PIN. Okay. Got it.
No. Yeah, that's right.
You.
It's a different PIN. Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. You picked up on that.
Hey, Rance, could you text me that, please?
And rattle it
Certainly,
off.
Dave, on the thumb.
Thank you, sir.
And text it really fast. Forget. That's a joke.
Well, you did whiz it by him, and it made it sound like it was a phone number, and
well,
it wasn't.
We put the phone number out. We put the room number out before on the same call, so I was just saying
Oh,
it's the
yeah.
857 number.
Oh yeah, okay.
Is that Tuesday night? Is that the Gale call?
Yeah, Gail
Yeah.
runs that call. She has a
And
good
what
call.
time is that?
8 Central.
Even after the call was over, people stay on there until midnight talking.
Yeah,
Dave can be a testament to that one.
Yeah, that's another good thing about these calls is if you have a question, nobody is afraid to answer or give their I wouldn't say legal advice, but their experience. And you got a lot of experience in this government right now that I've seen. Years of experience, and to me it's priceless. I know I don't ask a lot of questions on these calls. I choose to listen for now. But that's just because I'm a firm believer in due diligence. You have to do your own research. You have to. It's so important. That and knowing who you are.
If I may ask a question, this United States of America government organization, how do they interact or associate in any way with the Union States project? Are you familiar with the Union States people? Where the goal is establishing delegates for the 13 original states? And is there any association between those groups?
We don't associate with those.
Your group.
We don't associate with them.
And the Union States.
We did try to.
You do not associate with them?
Right. We did try to associate with them, but they argue over words for
Mhm.
weeks at a time. So, yeah, they argue over, they don't get anything done. So what we did was, and they still haven't connected themselves to the original Union or the original states. We haven't seen that yet. So we tried to help them out a little bit and say, look, you got to go this way or that direction. Then they started arguing about that. And then they split up, and then they started arguing about this. And so what we did was say, okay, when you guys want to get this done, you just let us know. We're going to get moving. We got to get moving here. So that was like 3 or 4 years ago, and that's the last we've heard of them. We don't know what's happened since.
I may ask a similar question with the. What do you think about the? What is it called? The National Liberty Alliance. With that, what's the gentleman's name? It's with that the.
John Durash.
Yeah, we've tried to help him, but they don't get involved. They don't want to do that.
So I think the principle is that they want to just go along to get along with the existing de facto colorable government that are, just running ramshot over so many people, as they're, I guess, they got the titles of ownership. They think they got the titles of ownership for everybody.
If you want to see something cool, compare the U.S. flag to the East India Company flag and go from there.
Yeah, that's always a good one. And then compare the Hawaiian flag to it. That's really pretty wild. We talked to them too. We actually helped them quite a bit, and they got in with the UN. That's why they're so close to recognition, because we helped them out to get recognized as an independent state. But they wanted their nation back. But what's stopping them is their flag. I told them, I said, you got to change your flag. I said, I did some research on your flag, and it's vetted back to the Netherlands and the Dutch East India Trading Company. I said, you've got to change that, and they won't change it. So, okay, there you go. Can't do anything about it. I can't do anything until they finally realize, oh, wait a minute, our kingdom, because they don't want to recognize that their queen that they're claiming was the queen at the time got her throne from the company, the East India Trading Company, from the Netherlands, and they're vetted back to there. So they're trying to gain independence when actually they're just nothing more than an independent sub company of the Dutch East India.
Yeah, they want to keep their tradition going. Yeah. They want to keep the tradition going
instead of really going out on their own and starting their own nation and their own flag. So yeah, I talked to one of their representatives. We got them changed around to where they stopped trying to go after the U.S. military for war crimes and all this other junk, And I said, look, I said, all those people are dead. I said, so why don't you just let that go and start brand new? And when they did, they started getting a whole lot more cooperation. And then the newspaper came out and said that they were contemplating independence for the Hawaiian people. And I don't know what's happened since then. I haven't been following it, but yeah, we had a lot to do with that. Getting their relations changed, because their relations was, you screwed us over, or you screwed our people over. That happened 100 years ago, and now we want vengeance. And I said, that's not the way you're gonna get this done. That's not gonna happen, buddy. And they recognized that, and they agreed. There's 5 different nations over there. They got 5 different chiefs and all this other stuff. And I said, why don't you guys create a union under one constitution? I said, that way you have a what do you call it? There's a word for it. But anyways, it's an intercontinental agreement. I can't remember the actual legal term for it, but I said, why don't you do that? And they go, well, there's too many arguing, because each one of the chiefs are saying that he's the original, so he wants to be in charge. I said, okay, well, that fight will go on for a couple of years, so give me a call when that's over. I told them that. Give me a call, and then we'll work on something else, and we'll go forward from there. So yeah, they just have us all infighting, and when you have that, you don't get anything done.
If I may ask a question.
Keith, did you know you can bet that flag, the red, white, and blue? You can bet that all the way back to Egypt, back to the pyramids.
Yeah, you can bet that back to Egypt and the pyramids, the same flag.
That's right.
That's where the Illuminati gets its flag.
Yeah, that's the slave-holding flag.
That's where the Illuminati gets its claim from Horus, the Eye of Horus, and all that. Y'all didn't realize that you were under.
If I may ask,
go ahead.
That's pretty interesting. But I got to ask a practical question regarding the title of ownership for the persons, the U.S. citizens. How do you rectify that with the authenticated birth certificate? Okay, we know that's for a non-human entity. The birth certificate, there's no human name on there. Right?
Yeah, that doesn't work. That's total farce. That's the whole authentication of the birth certificate. I don't know who came up with that, but you haven't signed it. You didn't sign it, so you wanted to authenticate it for whatever reason. I don't know if you're trying to get chain of title or what people are doing.
Do they in fact have an account? Do they in fact have birth certificate accounts with a lot of money in?
No, not even close.
If there was any money in it, if somebody else created the account, therefore you won't be able to write a check on it.
Yeah, there's no account.
Yeah, I know that, but I thought there was some kind of I forgot the acronym that you look it up, and some people look theirs up, and they stated that they had like over $1 billion in these accounts. I know they're churning them.
Sure.
I know their securities. I know the one lady, Carol, she checked on these documents for her grandson, 3-year-old grandson. He had 95 felony. I think it was 95 felonies.
Yeah, and she's on our website. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. We talked to her for quite a while.
So what's the deal with that? I'm wondering what are they doing with all that? Are they generating money for that? Or is there money? There's money involved. Money involved with that, with those birth certificates.
Well, you've heard of money laundering, right?
Yeah.
Well,
it's organized crime.
That should give you an idea what that's all about. Where do you think all that money's going from Afghanistan poppy fields?
For the what?
For the Afghan poppy fields.
Didn't hear what you said.
Yeah, why do you think the military's there? They're not there to free Afghanistan. They don't care about Afghanistan. They're there to protect the poppy fields. That creates the heroin.
Yeah, for the trading company, the British East India Company, are they still in business, those guys?
Well, they just
East
do
India?
business as the United States now. That's all. So,
they changed their name. Actually, LCIADA.
But you've got this was right on the federal news one time. We really got to get off here because we're way over time here. but they were on the news. When the military got there, they were running 1,800 tons. And after they got there, they were running 2,300 to 2,400 tons of poppy seeds in the poppy fields for the heroin. So that when they got there, because the Taliban was supposed to do all that, and they decided they weren't going to do it, they weren't going to protect the poppy fields, and so they had to send the U.S. military over there to secure all that, so that they could get the production running again. That's all that was happening. That's all Afghanistan is. It has nothing to do with freedom for America.
Yep, that's absolutely true. And if anybody wants to go online, you can go online and look up the heroin epidemic in America and look at how the numbers rose after we went over there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's awful. I hear everybody's in jail for all these prisons are all filled up with heroin people.
Jail and
everything's heroin clients, heroin trustees.
Yeah, and the cemeteries are filling with heroin overdoses.
Yeah, you know why that is?
Children.
A practical point, those did you ever read poppy seeds? Well, you can buy them by the pound. Guess what kind of poppies they come from? They're all opium poppy seeds. All those poppy seeds. Poppies.
Well,
poppies.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap this up. Hey, guys, I appreciate having you on. Yeah, rants. I know. I guess I owe you one.